All right, welcome, fans. Another edition of In Conversation. And as always, we have a special guest. And today's guest is none other than Mr. Mychael Gabriel. Welcome.
What's up, everybody? Joe, thank you so much for having me.
Very good. Yeah, great to have you on here. So we got a lot of ground to cover here. give
Yeah,
us a give us a, just a brief introduction. A little bit about yourself and what you've done in the music business so far to date here, so we can let everybody know who you are here.
right. Well, my name is Mychael Gabriel. I'm a musician, an artist, a writer, an engineer, and I've been working in the music industry for about 20 years, kind of behind the scenes. I've been working, propping up other artists for um, songwriting, producing, performance. And during the COVID pandemic is kind of when I said, I've been doing this for so long for other projects. What if I put some of that time and energy into myself, which is the real reason I began this. So a little bit of my past history is my godparents are the artists, iconic artists, Prince and Sheila E. And so that how that came to be is my father, Gilbert Davison, was Prince's personal security, and ended up becoming his manager and president of Paisley Park. On the other side, my mom, she grew up with Sheila E. in the Bay Area, and they were childhood friends. They moved to LA together, got their first apartment together. My mom was her co-lyricist and tour manager. And so my folks met while working on the Purple Rain World Tour, one in Prince's camp and one in Sheila E.'s camp. And so I jokingly say that I'm kind of this weird Purple Rain love child. And, the rest is kind of, I mean, there's a lot of nuance and whatnot, but the rest is kind of history. Music was just a driving force in my life from, before I was even born. And my parents were very supportive in kind of fostering my interest in music. We were the family that had a drum set in the living room, and there was no time of day or night where it was off limits to make noise or make music rather. And that just kind of that spiraled into just a continued lifelong interest in not just performance but songwriting in particular is kind of where I found my passion. And so in my early teen years, I said, I want to be able to translate my ideals into something tangible in the form of a recording. I said, how are all these bands getting their sound to sound the way it does on these records? Because this 8-track tape recorder with all this tape hiss isn't really cutting it for me. Like, it doesn't sound like the way I imagined it in my head. And so, long story short, I ended up going to engineering school. I did a stint at Berklee College of Music for guitar performance. And when all of that was said and done, I called Sheila E. up and I said, is it possible? Is it feasible that I could come out there to LA and be a fly on the wall in your studio and just kind of be in the mix, like just kind of get an idea, a little taste of what this world is like, because I think this is what I want to do. Something in this world is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And she was very gracious, and she was even kind of excited about the premise, the idea that I would have an interest in this. And so I went out there, and about a month or two in, I was cleaning up garbage cans, transferring DAT tapes, just kind of doing general maintenance around the studio. And then her head engineer ends up leaving to go out on tour. And she asked me, she said, fresh out of school, mind you, she says, hey, do you know how to run any of this equipment in here? Because I'm looking for somebody to kind of help me out, essentially kind of take over. So, do you think you can help me out? And I don't know if I was just naive, excited, young, whatever it was, but I would just like jumped I was like, yeah, sure. Me. Come on. Yeah. I got this. No problem. And she was very patient, because in those beginning years, of course I'm super green, of course I'm going to make mistakes. And of course there's going to be some challenges, but that just blasted open up the doors for me in terms of opportunity. And I learned so much, and it's, spiraled into a 20-year career for me, working with other artists, working in film and television, and that kind of brings me to where I am today. I've been her lead guitarist for 10 years, about a decade. So yeah, it's been a long and wild ride. But I'm excited for this next chapter in being able to finally share some of my music with everyone, with the world. So that's it. Hopefully I kept it kind of short.
It's not too often, that an artist does everything on their own albums nowadays, much less their debut. So
Right.
what gave you the idea just to go ahead and go that route and just do everything all yourself? Because you do all the writing,
Yeah.
producing, playing, every instrument, everything.
Right. Part of it is just because I grew up not really knowing any different. I didn't know that it was not normal. So, just like I didn't know, you got to remember, I'm looking at all of this through a child's eyes at a very young age. I didn't realize that Sheila E. and Prince weren't everybody's godparents. I didn't realize that Prince coming over to the house or hanging out with Sheila, at our apartment or something wasn't like, was abnormal, so that also translated into the whole music thing, because I grew up thinking that, playing all the instruments and writing and engineering, doing all that stuff yourself was just kind of normal. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized how unique it was. But by that point, I had gotten to a state of like, if I'm in the studio, I don't get me wrong, I love collaborating. I think collaboration is great. I love co-writing. I love, co-producing. I love being able to I love when you're working with someone else and they're able to express their artistry and you're able to express your artistry in such a way where there's this cohesion. It just works. It's like, two people working on the same painting, but then when you stand back and you go, wow, this is a beautiful piece of art. So I love that experience. But particularly with this album, it was important for me to make sure the audience got like a full taste of what I had to say, and be able to get my full musical thought out. And some of it is a little bit of impatience, because when I have a musical idea, it's like this is just how it sounds in my head. I might as well I'm just gonna play it and print it to tape, even though we're not using tape anymore. But it was important for me to just get that thought out right there in the moment, as opposed to, okay, I'm gonna wait to send it to this person, or just it kind of delays the whole process, because when you're like in a creative zone, you want to just kind of stay there in that zone. You don't want to do anything to kind of stifle. You don't want to dam up the flow, the creative flow. So I just did whatever I could to just keep it going. And one thing kind of snowballed into the next, and I the finished product is everything you hear on the Genesis record is 100% me.
So looking back, you also released some songs earlier, a
Hmm.
couple years back, like Ghosts in the Midnight and
Yeah.
Honesty. So those never made it onto the album. You decided that you wanted all fresh songs for the album, or
Yeah, so I have I have so many songs because I've been doing this for a long time, but I've been writing for just as long, if not longer. And I have hard drives upon hard drives of material, and you know e- everybody that I've worked with and um people very close to me have always encouraged me to say, hey, why don't you just put out an album? You have all these songs sitting here. Why don't you, they're not doing anything on the hard drive. And, and I too, I feel very strongly that music is meant to be shared, and I felt pretty strongly that I had spent enough time with these songs that, it was time to kind of give them renewed life through someone else listening to them with fresh ears. But at the same time, it was important for me to not just throw 12 songs on a record and say, okay, here it is. This is the album. I wanted there to be some sort of cohesion. I wanted there to be a storyline. I wanted there to be some other basis for why it exists in the state that it exists. And that's when the concept of Genesis kind of came into inception. Genesis is a biblical allegory of sorts, and it's a kind of documentation of my personal journey. So Genesis is the first book of the Bible. Genesis, the word means origin. And so this record is representative of the first step of my journey, of this longer journey of releasing my material. And so if you listen closely to some of the lyrics, I mean, you don't have to, like, this tie-in isn't a prerequisite to understanding the record as a whole, but there is that sort of biblical tie-in. Like, so the first song on the record is called In the Beginning, and which is a direct reference to the Bible. The second track is Let There Be Light, another reference. Then you have Madam I'm Adam, which is Adam and Eve. Then you have Radioactive Girl, which is Adam and Eve again. And I could just keep snowballing. And so it's not like, and I did that because I love polysemantic storytelling, where there's you whether it's in movies, whether it's in books, whether it's in poetry, where you read it and you can come up with two or several meanings to what it's all about. And one of the reasons I like that is because there's a flavor for everybody when you're listening to it. And I going back to, the music doesn't really belong to me anymore. Once you put something out, it belongs to somebody else. I love hearing other people's interpretations of something that I wrote. And all of them are correct, because at that point it kind of belongs to you. And so that was really important for me to kind of interweave that somehow into the concept of the record. So that's why Genesis sounds the way it does.
So do you consider it like a full-blown concept album, or more or less just like you said, just the beginning of everything?
Uh to me, it's not just a concept album, it's a concept project. I'm in the studio right now and I'm working on the follow-up record, which is called Exodus. which is again, a direct sort of line, biblical allegory sort of thing. And some people might go, it's overdone, but I don't think anybody's quite done it in the way that I am conceiving to do it. And again, you could leave all the biblical stuff out of it and listen to the record and have no concept of that sort of common thread. But for those that want a little bit something more to kind of chew on, you could also go down the rabbit hole, because I love going down rabbit holes. And it's like, oh, this is connected to this, or this is what this person meant when they said that, whatnot. So there's a lot to chew on. So I'm working on the follow-up record. And I'm also working in tandem to release a deluxe version of this record, because there were some songs that ended up on the cutting room floor for one reason or the other. But I also, I thought it would be interesting to just say, what if I just like threw it all out there, so I'm organizing that and kind of putting that together at the same time as I'm working on the follow-up record.
Gotcha. Okay. And the album itself, obviously, there's a lot of variety on it.
Yeah. And it's a multi-genre album by design. I didn't want it to feel too chaotic. In order for me to say what I wanted to say, I love so many different genres of music. And so I couldn't just pigeonhole myself to kind of one sound. And so I said, what better way to do that than with a sort of multi-genre album? Now, I can't go super crazy. I can't go so far left where they all feel disjointed, but I feel like there's a way to do it and still have like the glue between every record. I feel like I succeeded. I'll let the listener determine that. But you have, the opening of the record, I wanted it to sound like concerts that I like going to, where the band comes out like just with guns blazing, and you hear the roar of the crowd and everything. And so, throughout each step of this record, I was more thinking in terms of feeling and sentiment than I was genre. And so genre was kind of secondary. I didn't go, okay, I need a rock song here. I need like a more contemporary song here. I need a ballad here. I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking kind of more, okay, I'm listening to it. And then the song finishes and I go, okay, what do I want to feel next? And just kind of leaving myself open to kind of go on that roller coaster ride sort of in real time, not knowing where it's going, but knowing that, okay, I need to ramp it up here. It needs to come down here. It needs to kind of taper off. Okay, we need a loop here, and I hope those hills and valleys are expressed in the right way. And so, like I said, take a listen. I hope you guys enjoy it. It was a blast putting together. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Yeah, the sequencing definitely plays a big part in it for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
That is definitely key. Tell us about just a couple of the songs. How did Sunday Afternoon come about?
Sunday afternoon. So the writing process on that, I was actually in my living room at my piano on a Sunday, coincidentally enough. And I like this story because you can get a little bit of behind the scenes on the technical side. Because I feel like the creative and technical sometimes work in tandem in a weird way. But so I had my headphones on, and I had like just the headphone microphone. So I don't know if you can see the cord on the screen, but it had a microphone, not these headphones, but another pair had a microphone on it. And I did that because I was singing and playing at the same time. And I was brought up. My audio mentor, he said, record everything as if you're going to keep it, because you never truly know if that's the one, and maybe you just miss like that magic take, because you're not just creating, or you're not just recording mechanical vibrations in the air. You're capturing a moment. You're in and I feel very strongly that sometimes the art of recording in production in the modern sense is losing some of that magic. Not all the way, all the time, and that's no criticism to the way that a lot of modern producers make music, but it's important to allow things to be perfectly imperfect when the situation calls for it, when the circumstances are just right. So anyway, I'm sitting at my piano and I'm playing the song. You just kind of, I'm mouthing syllables and everything, and I was writing this love song, and I was like, oh, let's write like the corniest sort of love song like in the first verse, and then let's like just flip it. Let's just like turn it. That's where my mind was lyrically, because you know um the first verse is like, I've never heard anybody say hello in the way that you've said hello, is basically what I'm saying there. It's like, oh, I'm just so, you know, floored by your presence, just in the instance. Right. And then, relationships aren't perfect. No relationship is perfect. No relationship is without its trials and storms and challenges and whatnot. And so I said, well, okay, what if we just totally flipped it on its head? You think it's one thing, then lyrically it goes another way and just spirals out of control. And I thought there was something kind of fun about that. So that's kind of what the concept of it is. But on the technical side, going back to the recording on the headphone mic, when I went to, kind of do overdubs on the track, I recorded everything, finished the whole song in that afternoon. Hence one of the reasons why it's called Sunday Afternoon. When I went back to kind of clean some stuff up, maybe add some guitar, whatever, I'm listening to the vocals. I'm like, okay, so those rough vocals need to be redone. I retract those rough vocals, and it just didn't have the same vibe to it. I recorded on a nicer mic, and they sounded pristine, they sounded clean, they sounded like everything you would want the vocals to sound like, on a recording that you're going to release to the public. But it just didn't have the same vibe. And I went back to the headphone recorded rough vocal, and I was like, that's the one. And so what you hear is what I recorded on that Sunday afternoon as a rough vocal ended up becoming the final vocal. And that's kind of the story behind Sunday afternoon.
Interesting. Yeah, that was awesome. All right, and then the last one we'll talk about is "See You Again." That's the closing track on the album.
Yeah. So um I wrote that song. I wrote that song around the same time that my grandmother was in hospice.
Mhm.
I was working on another project actually with Sheila, and that was for her jazz album that just was recently released. But we recorded a couple years back, and um, I was writing this song and thinking about my grandmother, and just thinking about how life is kind of this, nothing's permanent, right?
Right.
You know, everything is kind of we live in a finite world, right? So uh that got me dwelling on my kids, and just uh, thinking about what I would, if I had an opportunity to say one last thing to them and kind of impart one last thing, you know, what would it be? And of course, it would be a song. And that's where See You Again kind of came to be. And so it's a flood of emotions, you know, because, you know, I'm not only thinking about my grandmother, I'm thinking about other, you know, loved ones lost, you know, I would be remiss to say that, you know, I was also thinking about, you know, Prince, you know, an iconic legend, that uh, prolific songwriter that we lost too soon. So it's just a flood of emotions kind of put to lyric and song.
Mhm.
And I thought it was a great way to finish off the album, because the whole premise of it, of the song itself, is that I'm going to see you again in some way, shape, or another. We'll be reunited again when all is said and done. And it was a great way to finish off the record, because it was also my way of saying to the listener, I'm going to see you again on the next album. So we'll be back at it and cracking very soon.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So what is the touring plan for the album? I know you got a lot of other things going on, which we'll talk about. But do you hope to do a headlining tour, or kind of latch on to like a support slot on a bigger tour?
We're developing the tour schedule right now. We have a couple dates on the schedule, um, and you can find those on my website and on my socials. It's one of the dates is coming up pretty quick, at the Minnesota State Fair, actually, which I'm
Mhm.
super excited to announce. That's going to be August 26th and 27th. We're playing a total of 4 shows there, and you know, I have to say, you know, touring is what brings this whole thing full circle. You know, I get so much joy out of live performance, and being able to finally um display these songs in a live performance setting is something I've just been chomping at the bit to do. So you know, however that touring schedule happens, it's going to happen. So, you know, just I just encourage people to check it out, you know, because it's going to be a party. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait. So just keep your eyes peeled for the upcoming touring schedule. And then also, I'm just perpetually on tour. I'm still touring with Sheila. I have a couple local dates with some other bands and whatnot in Minneapolis, just because, you know, I just love and enjoy playing. I love and enjoy music, especially live music, because, you know, with technology being what it is in this modern age, and songs and streaming being what it is, you know, there's still no replacement for live music. And so yeah, I feel like we should all do our part to help keep live music alive and well. And supporting artists and musicians live in concert is one of the best ways that you can do that.
All right. Very good. Is there anything else you want to bring up or mention before I let you go here today?
Yeah, just a public service announcement. So this has nothing to do with music, but it's a recent experience of mine, and I just wanted to share with you. So, Joe, I have to ask, do you like pizza?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I love pizza. I happen to be a foodie. When I go out on the road, that's kind of my jam. You know, I love music, but me and my colleagues, we jokingly say the real reason we do this is for the food. You know, so you should see my Google Maps. You can put stars on your Google Maps of all the places that you've been. My map is just like covered with stars, and it's all food places. It's gotten so bad that sometimes I set alerts on my phone when I land in a certain airport, all these food spots come up. It's like, oh, hey, remember this place, this place, this place, this place. So in particular, I love pizza. Um, and I said, okay, going out to get pizza is one thing, but like I've developed a certain palate where I really know what I like. And so I said, you know what? I need to bring this experience from the road to my home. So I got a pizza oven. I was really excited about it. I wish I could show you pictures, but um I've been making pizzas at home. So the other day I got a little too I was overzealous. Just let's just say that,
Okay.
right? I'm looking at this pizza, and I tell you, Joe, when you throw this in the pizza oven, like it cooks it like that. It's like it gets up to like 900 degrees. It's really, really fast, really quick. And it's like sort of that artisan Italian style, like that thin but fluffy crust. And you don't want to overload it with toppings. It's kind of a more delicate, sort of pizza, but it's very traditional, very good tasting. And so I throw it in this pizza oven, and I'm watching the cheese just like bubble up, right? And you can kind of see the tomato sauce kind of do that little, thing, and the crust is rising, and you see the flame coming over the pizza. And I'm like, man, this is just like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I'm just enamored with it. And next thing I know, I'm like, what's that smell? And somebody mentions, it's like, hey, is it just hot really, is it just hot near the pizza oven, or is your hair like smoking? And I'm like, what? I get back, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And it turns out I singed my hair getting too close to the pizza oven.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my PSA is, if you get a pizza oven, don't get too close. That's all I got to say, Joe.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Well, it was great talking to you. And if you want to just like let them know where to find you on your socials there.
Yeah. So you can find me on mychaelgabriel.com. Mychael with a Y, so Mychael Gabriel. And that's the same for all of my social handles. So check me out. Thank you for your support. Go listen to Genesis. I appreciate and love you all. Thank you so much, Joe, for having me.